What is going on, family? How you guys doing today? I hope you're well as you're watching this video. Today's a very big day, as you saw from the intro. Having a little fun, making a little unnecessary cinematic fun with the new Canon R6 Mark II. We got a giveaway announcement coming today. It's a big day. It's a big camera, a lot of new updates. Some might think there's not a lot. I think there are. Let's get into them. So as you guys probably know, the original Canon R6 has now been out since 2020. So we're coming up on 2 years, just over 2 years of life with this camera. And I think still the Mark I is still one of the best values out there as a hybrid camera. But now we have the R6 Mark II, which seems to improve on pretty much everything that was not liked about the original R6, with the higher megapixel count, some better ergonomics, a little more dynamic range, better autofocus, unlimited record times, no overheating. All these things that we had issues with on the original Mark I seem to have been addressed in the Mark II, and that's really exciting for a camera that was already one of the best hybrid cameras on the market. So I am pumped about this camera. I was fortunate enough to get one sent to me for about a month, and I've had plenty of time to play with it. I've shot multiple projects with it, and I have all of my thoughts ready to throw at you. So I want to kick this thing off quickly with the photo side of this camera. I've not taken a lot of photos with this camera, I'll be honest. I don't take a ton of photos these days, as many as I used to, but this camera is absolutely no slouch. The R6, in my opinion, was still an amazing photo camera, even at only 20 megapixels, but now we have 24 megapixels on the R6 Mark II, so you get that resolution bump, which is nice and appreciated. You also get double the burst mode speed in electronic shutter. It went from 20, which is already insane frames a second with electronic shutter, to 40 frames a second. That's absolutely mind-blowing. If you're a sports photographer, if you're a wildlife photographer, that is an amazing feature to have. So always nice to see plenty of options in terms of photo mode. And let me just say, the autofocus is absolutely incredible. We're getting a very, very similar system as to what is in the Canon R3. And we know that is the top of the line autofocus system that Canon has out right now. And you're basically getting the same system within the R6 Mark II. So autofocus was never an issue before, and it's just as good and much better this time in terms of eye detection, subject tracking, all that good stuff. So in photo, you're not gonna have any problems. This is a really, really solid camera. The sensor's beautiful. You get a lot of dynamic range out of this camera, and I'm very pleased with the few photos that I have taken, and I'm sure I'll have no issues going forward. So now let's move on to the video specs of this camera, which is where I'm gonna spend the most time, because that's what I do the most, and that is what I've used this camera the most for. I found that the dynamic range is slightly better on the R6 Mark II. I'm just using real world examples. I'm not really measuring things scientifically in a studio environment. I'm just feeling it out with what I'm shooting, and I do feel that it is a little better. Is this camera C70 level? Is it amazing at dynamic range? No, but you're getting about 13 stops with this camera in C-Log3 cinema gamut. So it's no slouch, and I think for a hybrid camera, it's plenty. And for the projects that I'm gonna use this camera for, in decent lighting situations, you're not gonna have any trouble with dynamic range. Now, if you're in a challenging backlit scenario or something like that, you may see some struggles, especially compared to something like a C70 or an FX3 or an A7S3. You're gonna get more dynamic range out of those cameras. But with something like this, 13 stops is respectable. And I get some people talking online that it's not ideal. Is it ideal? No. Would I love more? Of course. But remember, this is a $2,500 camera, and how much can you really expect? And I think Canon's done a great job once again with this camera in terms of video specs. I think it's super well rounded. I love that they've completely lost even the very minimal crop that was at 4K on the R6 Mark I. That's gone. Even though it wasn't a huge deal, it is now gone, so you don't have anything to worry about there. You got full 4K 60 again. I've had zero overheating issues with this camera. The only time I've even gotten a remote indicator was when I recorded for literally 27 minutes straight or something like that in 4K 60. I was shooting some woodworking stuff, and we were doing really long takes. And that was the only time I even got an indication that it was starting to overheat, but it never got anywhere close. I never had any issues. It never shut down on me. I've recorded long form content like this at 4K 23 frames a second, and I've had zero issues with overheating. So it seems that Canon really has fixed the overheating issues from the original R6 Mark I, which I didn't personally have many issues with myself, but I know that people did. and they seem to have really buttoned that up with this Mark II. So as I mentioned with the photo section of this camera, you're also getting that same amazing autofocus from the R3 in video modes, and that is incredible, because let me just tell you guys, this camera is ridiculous in terms of autofocus. The eye tracking, the way it holds and grabs onto things, the subject tracking, the AI tracking that it kind of just knows what you want to track, works surprisingly well. So I've been very, very impressed with that. It is definitely a noticeable improvement over the original R6, which was no slouch. So that kind of tells you where this camera's sitting in terms of autofocus. So it's been honestly really freaking good. And guess what? We now have custom modes in video. If you go set the custom modes on the dial at the top of the camera, you can now set custom modes in video. So that's an amazing addition. I also really, really love the photo video switch. I think that's a great, it's a quicker way to change modes. I really enjoy that. It's taking some, ergonomic muscle memory to get used to, but I think by the time I get used to it, it's going to be great. I'm already pretty much used to it at this point, so I have no complaints there. I love the subtle ergonomic changes they made. The grip feels a little chunkier, which I have really big hands, so I enjoy that. It might not be for everybody, but this camera is by no means huge. I find it really comfortable to hold, especially for long periods of time. The IBIS also seems to be improved, at least on paper. I can't really tell a huge difference, not gonna lie. The wobble does seem better, but it seems about as good as the R6 was after that most recent firmware update. So no really massive improvement one way or the other there, in my opinion. I still stand by the fact that the images coming off this camera are just beautiful. I really enjoy the 10-bit files that you get out of the R6. Yes, they're IPB. I wish they were all I, but honestly, for the things, again, that I'm gonna use this camera for, I don't really need it. If I need a higher bitrate stuff, I'm gonna pull out my C70 and use that. For stuff I'm using the R6 for, the IPB 10-bit 4K files are plenty. Okay, it is time to announce the winner of the GoPro Hero 11 Black giveaway that I announced a couple weeks ago, like 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I have gone to randomcommentpicker.com. I've made sure that the winner follows me on Instagram, has subscribed to the channel, left a comment about their biggest inspiration. By the way, it was amazing to read all you guys' comments. I genuinely really enjoyed reading all of the things that get you guys inspired to create. So thank you for leaving those. Seriously, I really do appreciate it. I'm not just saying that. It was really cool to read. So I appreciate you taking part in this giveaway, even if you didn't win. I encourage you to stick around, see what else I have on the channel. I have a lot of things coming. There will be more giveaways in the future. So, but also I just want you to be a part of this community. So if you want to stick around, please do so. But without further ado, the winner of the GoPro is Inside the Lines. Bro, thank you so much for commenting, subscribing, being a part of this channel. Congratulations to you. I'll be sending you a message on Instagram, so check your DMs. I'll get your info and I will get this thing out to you as soon as I can. Thank you to everybody who entered. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of this community. I couldn't ask for a better group of people to watch my videos, so I thank you guys very much for that. Now let's get back to the video. As you guys have probably noticed at this point, I'm not a super technical person. I'm very much of a run and gun, kind of go with the flow, just figure stuff out as we go. So this is not gonna be a super technical review. I mean, even like that intro that you guys saw at the beginning, that unnecessarily cinematic story about finding the R6 Mark II in the woods, like that was ridiculous, and I get it, it was stupid, but it was just fun to make, and that's kind of stuff that I do. So that's how I use this camera. That was like a spur of the moment idea. Granted, I shot it on the C70, but that was a spur of the moment idea. And that's kind of how I use this camera. And the R6 Mark II honestly has been amazing for what I do. I love a good run and gun camera, especially now that the overheating is completely gone. The no 30-minute record limit, like that, those two things alone right there have basically made this, solidified it as the perfect hybrid camera. If I need to take some photos, do some quick projects, video, more low budget stuff, it's the perfect camera to have in your kit. Highly recommend. Now, if I was an original R6 owner, would I upgrade? I'm having to make that decision myself because I do not get to keep this camera. I can choose to purchase it or I can send it back. And so I've been debating back and forth. Do I feel like it's a worthwhile update to the R6? I'm probably going to end up keeping it just because I've fallen in love with the autofocus and the subtle changes. That's the danger of getting something and getting to use it for a month. You get used to it and then you don't want to give it back. So that's my situation. But if I'd never used it and I was coming up just cold, do I upgrade from the R6 Mark I to the Mark II? I don't know. I think it depends on how much you use the camera. Do you use the updated features? Are you a long form content shooter? Then yeah, It's a valid update with no overheating and the no record limit. That's a big deal. Do you do a lot of action, video and photo stuff where you need really good autofocus? Then maybe you do upgrade. Are you a sports photographer, or are you a wildlife photographer? Then grab the R6 for the burst mode. So there are multiple reasons that you may want to upgrade, but I think you have to answer that question for you. All I can do is give you my experience, how I've used the camera, do I like it, what I don't like about it. I do want to hit on the things that I don't like. And the biggest thing with this stinking camera that I cannot stand is the ridiculous fact that we're still putting micro HDMI on any product that comes out in 2022. It's absurd that even is a thing still. I cannot stand it. It is the most fragile cable on the planet. I've broken countless macro HDMI cables, so I really hate that with a passion. Honestly, I just can't stand it. It really sucks. The other thing I don't like about the camera is honestly probably the dynamic range. I wish it was a little bit better, but overall, not a deal breaker. It is not awful by any means. I've just gotten used to the C70, to be honest with you, and now I'm kind of spoiled by it. So that's the thing that I probably noticed. But honestly, those are really the only few things that I don't like about the camera. I have not come across many other issues with it that I personally feel the need to share. I mean, is any camera perfect? By any means, no. But this camera does everything I need it to and more, and that's all that you can ask for from a camera. It gets out of my way and allows me just to create the projects that I want to create, and that's what matters. Whether you're a Sony guy, a Canon guy, a Fujifilm guy, a Nikon guy, let's be honest, are there really any Nikon guys anymore? I mean, if you are, more power to you. All jokes aside, if you are loyal to one of these other brands or you enjoy using these cameras, use them by any means. If they allow you to create what you want to create, that's all that matters. So that would be my answer to you about the R6. But if not, don't do it. Save your money. Buy a lens. Buy something else that will help you further your creative process. We don't always have to be at the cutting edge of every brand new camera. And I'm guilty of this too. Don't get me wrong. I'm preaching to the choir here. I have to fight that in myself and always feel the need to get the newest thing and be on top and at the forefront of the industry. But that's not always necessary. And I think I'm learning just to create what I love to create and only change when I feel like what I'm doing is holding me back.